So this really started my sophomore year while I was at the University of Michigan. And I felt like God was calling me to go into ministry. But at that point, I had only been a Christian for about a year. And I had a lot of questions, and there was a lot of uncertainty in my life. And so I did the first thing I could think of. I emailed Pastor Seth, who's here today, and I asked to meet up with him. And I shared with him my conviction, right, as best I could as a 19-year-old. And he said to me two things that are really important that's kind of stuck with me. He said, "Bro, pray." That's what he said. And then, the other thing he said was, just be patient and wait, right? I think he said something like, give it 10 years, and in that time you can become a millionaire and do whatever you want. I didn't become a millionaire, as he said. And then the other thing, I guess he also said that we believe that that this ministry is not just self-proclaimed. Like I can't just go out and say, "Oh, I'm going to be a pastor. Here I am," right? But it's got to be confirmed by the church. And so I really took that to heart, and I just started praying. And as I was praying, a lot of things started coming out. I think God was really working in my heart. And there are two things specifically that I think God was bringing up. The first was, and the most difficult was, just this pride. I saw that within me there was this desire to lead, but there was also this desire for attention, right? This desire to be recognized. And that really scared me, because I saw the pastoral ministry as something that was so important to God, and yet here I was thinking about it with a sense of entitlement, a sense of pride, right? And so it really caused me to pray. And then the second thing that happened was it really made me wrestle with God's goodness. And the way that worked out was, before I became a Christian, my father was actually a shaman, right? I'm from the Hmong culture, and shamanism is very common, right? Hmong people are very familiar with it. And my father was a very prominent shaman in the community. And what I noticed about shamanism was there was something that was not right about it. Because you could heal, but just as easily you could curse someone. And I found my father was doing these things both. And when he prayed for me, I felt that there was this, this heaviness that would come over me, right? And it really caused great fear in my life, right? I had nightmares about it, right? And when I first accepted Christ, I started feeling the Holy Spirit working in my life. And there was this great trepidation. I couldn't distinguish between what my father had done to me and what the Holy Spirit was doing. And I really distrusted God. As much as I loved Him, there was, in the back of my mind, distrust, uncertainty. And through the last, 11 years, I think God has been really speaking to those two issues specifically. I think with the smaller issue of, fear and of God's goodness, I think God really spoke to me through a retreat I was at. We used to go to this retreat called Oil in Montrose, Pennsylvania, right? Like we'd take a 14-hour ride. And then while we were there, there was a call, right? Like a pastor there just said, "Hey, if anybody feels like God is calling you to this ministry, come up and receive prayer." And so I came up and I received prayer, and it was for the first time I felt the Spirit of God working so powerfully, and I felt His goodness, right? I don't know how I can explain it other than He was just so holy and so good. He was so good that I felt like I couldn't stand before Him. And so what I did was I just placed my forehead on the ground. I don't know why I did that. It was so dirty. I put my forehead on the ground, and all I could think was, "Oh, I'm so unworthy, and You're so good. I can't place my head far enough to this ground to show Your goodness." And I think God really spoke to me about who He was that day. And the other thing was just my pride. And I think this is something, if you know me, this is something I'm constantly working on. But I think what God was really teaching me was, these are the issues that I have to be very mindful of. My very nature is sinful, right? But I have to approach it with great humility and with great accountability. And with that, still there was a lot of hesitation. But I think just people encouraging me, saying, "Hey, Tou Fue, this is," like even this past year, a couple of sisters and brothers were just saying to me, "Hey, Tou Fue, I think I see this call in your life, and you must be faithful with it." And that really caused me to think and pray about it. And that's when I first approached Pastor Seth. I said, "Hey, man, you remember that conversation we had 11 years ago where you told me to wait 10 years? I waited 1 year too long." So I asked him to start with me in praying the process with